Joining us on the line is Dr. Brenda Shaffer. She's a senior advisor for energy at Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Brenda, thanks so much for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Sure, Ben.
So let's talk about the consequences of the Ukraine war in terms of energy prices. So we've seen the spike in gas prices. The West does not seem to be opening the sluice when it comes to oil and gas. It seems like they continue to maintain that they're going to get gas from third world dictatorships, or that they're going to continue to ramp up the regulations of the oil and natural gas industry. Where do we stand in terms of the energy markets?
Right. So, on the eve of the war, oil was already very close to $100 a barrel, and natural gas markets all over the world were very tight. Coal was at an unprecedented high as well. But it was very easy for, everyone sort of flip the narrative and say, well, these high prices are because of Putin. But it really, the war, of course, increased the prices and the subsequent sanctions. But really, we went into this crisis with very, very tight energy markets all over the world.
So looking at sort of the ramifications of the war, it looks like China is benefiting because they're able to buy up Russian oil at pennies on the dollar. Same thing for India. Meanwhile, the West is paying supersized prices for oil and natural gas. And that's true even though we are going to places like Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis, because they're angry at the United States for negotiating with Iran, they've been like, yeah, you know what? What if we just sell our oil to China instead and take yuan in return?
Right. So basically, China is the big winner here, that they're basically buying, oil at a cheaper price than everyone else. Still the revenue flow from energy is getting to Russia from both natural gas, coal, oil, minerals. So even if they're selling less oil, which is not necessarily true, but even if they were selling less volumes, it's at a higher price. So it really, they're getting the same kind of revenue flow. We really need to think about what are the economic, for global economic implications. We know that generally high energy prices trigger recession. And it's really important that it's not saying that we shouldn't be confronting this aggression and this invasion. But on the other hand, we have to understand the implications. And yes, we really need to be preparing and to try to avert a very serious global recession.
We're speaking to Dr. Brenda Shaffer of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. So when we look at what we've been doing in terms of sanctioning Russian oil and natural gas, it's easier for us in the United States. Only about 5% of our imported oil and natural gas comes from Russia. It is not easy at all for Europe. How long can Europe last without turning the spigots back on?
Well, first thing, it's a global market. So even if you have, homegrown energy, you're still going to pay, at least for oil and coal, you're going to pay it at, global market prices. We really can't insulate ourselves from those trends. But we're already seeing true shortages in Europe of diesel, which is really the workhorse of industry. We're seeing natural gas prices are so high, and this has already been, again before the conflict started, are so high that factories are closing. So really signs of recession in the UK, in Germany. And things like some of the factories that are closing are fertilizer, so that pushes down the line to agricultural prices. And we'll probably have, because of the fertilizer prices and also the disruption of Ukraine growing season for wheat, we're going to have huge, high food prices and maybe shortages. And of course, that's going to affect millions, of people that really live on very basic foodstuffs, So it's not just the whole foods, but it's the peasants all over the world that are going to really suffer from the high food prices and the shortages.
So Dr. Shaffer, the West continues to maintain that the way out of this is green energy, that if we just pour money into subsidizing green energy, all of this will be okay. You've heard Pete Buttigieg, our wonderful Secretary of Transportation, who is incredible at his job because he loves choo-choo trains and airports, saying that if we only all ride the bus or if we buy electric vehicles, this will solve the problem. The unfortunate issue is that electric vehicles run $50,000, $60,000 a person, whereas the car that you're currently running costs you $0 except for the gas price. So what exactly do we need to do in terms of averting climate change, and why are these policies that they're pursuing not calibrated to do it?
Right. So, the current even if everyone could afford an electric vehicle on so many levels, one, we don't produce enough electricity in the United States today, even to support current uses. You already have, systemic blackouts in California, seasonal blackouts in Texas. Now with New York State closing its last major nuclear power plant, you're going to have also, endemic blackouts in New York State as well, other places. So we don't produce enough electricity for a really massive shift. Second, it doesn't really really solve the problems. First thing, on the geopolitical level, so instead of being beholden to, some foreign oil producers, we're going to be beholden to a mineral chain that China controls, and China will benefit from it, as well as from the hardware. And third, most clean energy, clean means low carbon energy, isn't green energy. What we do to the environment through land use, through massive, wind towers, solar, hydropower, which destroys, water systems. There will one day be a renewable replacement for fossil fuels, but it isn't this generation of renewables. It really can't deliver the goods, and it has huge harm for the environment.
Well, that is Dr. Brenda Shaffer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Dr. Shaffer, thanks so much for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
Sure.